Slapjack Happy Bap. It's Hotline League episode 83. Really excited to be back after taking 1 week off. We delivered 2 episodes in one, so Mark and I, we went off to Palm Springs and had a great time. Mark, how's it going?
There was no real justification for it related to work. Don't try and sell them that. Our viewers are too smart.
It was an amazing justification.
We
Either
wanted
way,
a vacation.
my constant co-host
Wanted to
Mark is
relax.
joining me right now. How's it going, Mark?
Pretty good. I actually had a busy Monday. Usually I just sit around in my underwear until the show comes on. But I went to Riot. We did the dive today. Wrote a bunch of stuff up for something else, and now I'm here. So busier than I thought it would be for Monday.
Fantastic. And our guest this week is Phreak from Riot Games. How's it going, Phreak?
It's going well. Better now, obviously, now
thank
that
you.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say, well, wait, are you claiming it's better because of us, or is it better just because you're in this situation?
Let's go a little column A, little column B.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to figure out if it was a compliment to us or to yourself. I don't know. But either way, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Do you want to give a shout out to Alienware for sponsoring the show? I need to get their logo up, and it will be up in just a second because I switched out my computer recently, so I have to add all this stuff back, and I completely forgot to add that back before the start of the show, which is incredibly inappropriate of me because they support the show. Either way, thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring. We'll have their logo up throughout the rest of the episode. Other than that, we'll talk more about them later on as I try to adjust the frame. But I've been doing well. Thanks for asking, everyone. Really appreciate it. And
Hey, how's it going, Travis?
It's going well. Thank you. Mark never asks, and today was really good. I had a really good day, so I'm happy. And
I'm glad you're happy.
Yeah.
That's good, dude.
What made today so good?
Long story. I don't want to get into it. We've got a 2-hour podcast. I can't talk about it for a very long time, but that's okay, because we have a lot to talk about on this episode, and I don't know. Actually, we had a couple of things that came out today, I think. Trying to think about them, but we have basically 2 weeks worth of stuff. So we talked about Rift Rivals at Rift Rivals and shortly thereafter, but we've had a couple other things, a couple of games that have occurred. It's been a couple of weeks, and I guess we now, at the last time we did a show, the standings were all over the place. Now they are looking a lot more solid, with Team Liquid in first, and then behind them Cloud9, and then a bunch of other people. I don't know, Mark, what have I missed?
I mean, I disagree with the thing looks more stable now. I actually think it's in the middle of flipping.
Oh, really? Okay, tell me.
Right.
About it.
Well, because the 2 worst teams so far this season have been 100 Thieves and then FlyQuest, and now both of them are on the rise. The top 6, which was pretty certain, it felt like, has Golden Guardians and Optic in the middle of a slide. So I don't know. I think it's actually we always knew Team Liquid was the best. They're finally climbing, and the top is looking a little more normal, but we always kind of knew what the top was.
Did we? I feel like for a while we had 6 teams that were tied for first, and then 5 teams that were tied for first.
Did anyone actually think TL wasn't going to be the number 1 team?
I don't know.
I think they could have maybe dropped a spot or 2 in the regular season just because of regular season, just because they said they're going to take a break at the beginning of the split and stuff, and hey, it looked like that. But I mean, I'd still expect them to win the split at the end of it all, but I would have been okay with them getting 3rd and having C9 or TSM playing well, passing them.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people expected it, but I still feel like there was an interesting battle, and now I feel like we have the team that's in first place, we have the team that's in second. I don't know, but maybe all of it will get thrown up soon.
I enjoyed how close the fight for first was. Optic had a very hot start, of course, and CLG was up there for a while. And, they're still only 2 games behind first, but there is this chance that, hey, what if this is actually crazy and suddenly Optic gets a playoff bye and they're actually really nuts? And, okay, that's proved to not be true anymore, but there was a time where you thought, hey, maybe it's actually going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know, Mark, what other things am I forgetting that have happened? I mean, part of the reason I know that but I didn't feel that bad missing last week because it felt like there was not that much that was going on last week, at least.
Yeah, I don't remember much other than Mike Young was last week, and now it's been 2 weeks of Mike Young. But now we have Kumo, who's been starting. There's been a whole lot of Twitter memes recently, especially around Broken Blade and that copy pasta.
Yes,
it's a good pasta.
Yeah, and then today there's a whole bunch of tweets about the Echo Fox management situation as well as the fantasy update. So
Yeah. Well, if somebody calls in, maybe we'll talk about that. I don't know, but in my opinion, there's not too much to talk about on the Echo Fox stuff or on the fantasy stuff because there's literally no update. It's just sort of like, we'll see soon. So that's kind of that. I mean, that stuff came out today, but then it didn't really feel like there was much to talk about around it. So either way, but I am excited to hear what everybody thinks about the last couple of weeks of LCS and hear everyone's hot takes. And I don't know. Mark, do you think we should just dive in? Or did you have any rants in mind for the start of this episode?
Ooh.
none that jump to mind. Oh yeah, your roommate announced he's
Contractor.
contractor now. He can do stuff.
Yes.
Mhm.
Why isn't he on here too?
I don't because I can't get him to do anything.
He'll lurk in the background.
Yeah.
He'll just come by once in a while on like a wave.
We tried to get him to go to Palm Springs with us, and then we couldn't get him to do that. So
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah. No, it didn't happen. I mean,
No, of course
initially yes, but then he backed out. So broke my heart.
All right. Well, then I really don't have anything else.
Okay. Well, then let's get into it because I want to hear a full 2 hours of everyone having hot takes and all sorts of interesting stuff.
Beautiful.
Mark, do you want to explain how the show works?
Yeah, so if it's your first time watching, the way that this works is I'm spamming Twitch chat right now with the Discord link. You can go ahead and click that to join the Discord server that we use for the show. Once you get there, go ahead and join pleb calls 2, or sub calls. You need to hang out there so I can grab you. And then in pleb topics or subtopics, go ahead and post whatever it is you want to talk about. Try to make sure it's more of a take so we know what your stance is coming in. You think 100 Thieves is actually not that good right now. They're getting lucky and they'll still miss playoffs. Whatever it is, you think TSM sucks, whatever. Go ahead and post that. If we like it, I will pull you from pleb calls into the waiting room where you'll hang out until it's your turn. And then once it is, we'll pull you after a quick mic check into the on-air room to talk with all three of us.
Yeah. And if you are a sub, first off, thank you for being a sub. It's always super appreciated. We shout you out during the in-between time, and we will do that again. But also make sure that you join the subtopics channel because you can, on Discord, you can, if you want to be on the show, you can put your take in there, and it moves a little slower, so that's a bit of an advantage that subs get. And I always really appreciate you guys, so thank you so much.
I
Either
appreciate
way,
you too.
yes. Phreak also
Travis
appreciates
subs.
that.
I appreciate Travis subs as well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
what I meant by that.
I think I'll get a lot more now just because you said that.
Hey, is that skull to the right of me over there? Is that in honor of raiding Area 51?
Which, oh no, that is the Alienware logo.
I know. I was
They
trolling.
make Area 51 PCs, so
Yeah.
yes, I will not be raiding Area 51 other than the Area 51 that I own. Anyway, let's just
You should make a skit video where you're raiding in WoW on an
Yep.
Area 51.
Exactly.
Bang.
That's
And
not
then
a
you
bad
can
idea.
rate the laptop. You can rate the Area 51.
Let's get into the calls. Mark, do we have any topics coming in?
Nope, no one wants to talk today.
Really? That's
No,
unfortunate.
we have one. I'll
Okay,
go
we
get
have to
someone.
fill. Okay. Off Mark goes. Speaking of subs, let's read off a couple of them as I pull that information up. Phreak, you do anything interesting recently?
Done anything interesting recently? I am DMing 2 D&D campaigns now.
Okay.
Which is actually a lot of work.
Yeah, I imagine.
But it's a really fun hobby. So yeah, I'm just heavily immersed in Dungeons and Dragons just as a person, as a hobbyist. So that's really fun. I didn't think I would, but I fell super hard into TFT as well. I've played a lot of games.
Why didn't you think you would? just
So
don't think it's the
I
type of
actually,
game that you like?
so I tend to like strategy games. Like I've played a bunch of Civilization. I got Legend in Hearthstone a while back. I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering. So, but for some reason in my mind, I was like, well, it's just going to be so RNG heavy. I'm just going to feel like I'm going to be frustrated. It's just not the game for me. So like I never played auto chess, right?
Yeah.
And then it came out, and I was like, well, I guess I'll play some games. Turns out the game's really fun, and the RNG tends to average out. Or at least like you can get top 3 or top 4 even without great RNG by being good. And so I think the fact that it wasn't a one-on-one game, like if it was Hearthstone with the sort of like types of RNG that's in Teamfight Tactics, I think I'd have a really bad time because I would expect to win a one-on-one game if I play correctly.
Right.
But getting top 3 is success, and you can do that by just being good. So like that immediately destroyed the negative. Like, oh, here's why I wouldn't like it. And there's actually just a crap ton of depth to the actual game, so I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, we do have our first caller here, Dex Factor 777. Where are you calling from?
Kansas.
Kansas. Whereabouts in Kansas?
Central Kansas, Hutchinson.
Hutchinson. Okay. Well, welcome to the show. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
That NA and EU are much closer than they appear talent-wise.
Okay.
And that main thing, that the reason why there seems to be such a gap this year is because the EU technically had a head start. So
Interesting. Okay, this is a dangerous first call because in the past we've angered a lot of EU viewers. I'm a little worried how this is going to go. But go ahead and explain your take.
Mainly because I think G2 is so far ahead of the curve. I mean, you just see with recently with Rift Rivals and then also with MSI how far ahead of understanding the current meta and the current game style, and they work so well with that that it has given the European scene as a whole a huge head start into playing. Because I mean, Rift Rivals EU versus NA, for the most part, EU utterly crushed NA. I mean, yeah, I mean, C9, couple players sick and not feeling well, and TSM had bright points in that, but as a whole, EU just killed it.
Yeah, you're not. It sounds like you're making the opposite argument.
Oh yeah. Because it's just that because of the head start that particularly G2 has given them in the spring split, so they were all kind of getting used to this whole kind of ramp up, and it's just with because you looked at Team Liquid going in at the beginning of MSI didn't look really good. They started looking better. They ended up being second place, and Rift Rivals, they were the only team to look really good, because they had that experience, got their feet wet, and kind of understanding. And that's why you see some of the teams, the upper team, TSM, Cloud9, and TL, picking up on it quickly, but they also falter, like G2 did in the spring with some of the big blow-ups in games that they should have just crushed. And that because it is a very volatile style. But it's just with EU having that head start, they just look so much better. But North America has the talent. It just, we haven't figured out how to play that meta yet.
Okay. Interesting.
Fully.
So you think it's just we have the talent, it's just we haven't figured out the meta. Is there not a chance that the fact that we haven't figured out the meta indicates that we don't have the talent?
I mean, there is that possibility. I just don't see that because, I mean, you look at, I mean, again, going back last year, like Worlds, like you had 2 European teams making it really far, north of Cloud9 making it really far in last year's Worlds. So, I mean, the talent is obviously there, and it's just it just depends on the execution and then the structuring of how you're going to make that meta and style work within your team, because it's going to be different for everyone. Because like, yeah, G2, they can play Pike in every single role. They're the only team that does that. So it's not saying that every team in Europe or every team in any region has to be able to play that. It's just that's one of the things that they're able to do. But Origin has a totally different play style. And I can't think of the other.
Fnatic?
Yeah, Fnatic. I don't know why I just blanked on that.
Okay.
It's okay.
Sorry,
You're
Fnatic
on the air,
fans.
right? You forget folks sometimes. I know very well.
But how they all have their own unique style of playing this new meta and all different champions. Yeah, you still have your meta champions, your Aatroxes, your Sivers, and things like that. But there's unique kind of there's an identity for every team. It almost feels like, and so it's like Liquid, Cloud9, TSM, all the other teams finding their identity in this meta.
Okay. Mark, I'm very curious on your take. We'll start with you so that, I'm curious how you're going to feel.
I mean, it depends what angle you want to approach this first round. I mean, like the base of it is NA as talented as EU, right? I mean, like with all the explanation aside, that's the question we're asking.
Basically.
Yeah, I don't quite agree. I think in terms of top three, I think Europe's better. I think their middle's probably better. I've always said I thought NA's bot lane or like bottom tier teams have a little bit more talent than them because that's usually full of a bunch of players that are a mix of new and old players. So you still have prior to this, like FlyQuest was our former fourth place team in last, and then it was 100 Thieves who are now rising, and that right now is Echo Fox, and they're going through a lot of stuff. But so outside that argument about maybe our bot tier teams are better, I think Europe has performed better internationally at the last 3 events that we've attended together, 4 events we've attended together. Past 2 Rift Rivals, MSI, Worlds.
Mhm.
So I have a hard time believing that we're as talented when we're consistently losing out to them. Now you might say that's not a talent problem, but I think that's maybe beginning to split hairs and get a little too semantics. I think we are worse, if you don't want to say skilled, and I don't think it's incomparable gap or insurmountable gap we'll never get over. But right now we're not over it yet.
Phreak, how about you?
Okay, so yeah, to break down the various topics, I think LCS and LEC are reasonably close in overall player skill, because of the heavy importing of LCS. I think if you only take native players for each region, it's not close. So just like that argument, but with the importing, I think it's close overall.
Right.
I think I think LEC has the edge on just overall team strength, but I don't think it's that far away. The hair I always split with like calling things the meta or whatever is I think you can't really faithfully look back, or I think you can't really faithfully call something the meta or talk about what an optimal strategy is without actually looking back after a lot of experience. So G2 is the only team that plays Pyke in 5 roles. So does that mean Pyke flexes the meta, or is it just, well, G2 is the best team and they play Pyke in 5 roles? Like, you can be a championship team in every single league and never play a game of Pyke. Is Perks playing top lane sometimes the meta? No, that's just something G2 does. Playing Nico bot lane is sometimes useful, and playing Yasuo top lane is sometimes useful, but you don't have to like switch your players around to do that. You just need champion pools. That's a G2 thing, not the meta, right? So like that like as a topic is something that I could have believe in very strongly. Just like people call things the meta, and I don't know what people typically mean by the phrase the meta. Like to me, the meta game is what teams are doing in general, and if teams all have different styles, then there is no meta because teams all have different styles. Other than I guess we're not playing tanks in the top lane, and we are playing tanks in the jungle. Other than that, it's kind of wide open. I mean, some leagues are really big on Azir Corki mid, and some aren't. So like maybe there's a meta game in North America where it's very Azir Corki heavy, and so the NA meta is all about scaling mages or scaling mid laners, and there's ways to attack that and do well against it and do poorly against that, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the meta heading into Worlds, assuming there's no patches coming into the game. So again, I just have a very big distaste of the phrase the meta because teams are actively trying to figure out what's correct and what's optimal, and no one actually knows. But yeah, I think Europe has a lot of different teams that play a lot of different styles. Reckless wants a lot of help bot lane all the time, and Fnatic are top. I mean, they're tied for first right now, right? And they beat G2 the first time around, so they're the best team in Europe based in regular season, and they're a can't bot, only play marksman ever kind of team. And G2 is the other best team in Europe, and they are the opposite of that, basically. They have the best mid laner in maybe the world, and they play through that, and they play a lot more flashy, and they don't, just play teamfight 80 carries. So as far as the point of, like, Europe is only better because the head start, I just think they have more sort of complete teams that are playing at a high level that, can play a strategy and can play a style well. But we also saw from Team Liquid, they had a 75% win rate at Rift Rivals. Like, they were in general, better than the European teams, and they're a Sonateric team. They're a very standard team fight 80 carry or lane bully 80 carry. In fact, they can go different ways with it. Double's so good, he can either win lane with core or he can win team fights with core. So there's actually 2 different TL styles, essentially. It's still win through bot lane, but like it's not the same way that Fnatic wins through bot lane. It's certainly not the same way that G2 wins through bot lane. So I do think we're in a spot right now in League of Legends where you can have a lot of different styles and be a world championship caliber team.
Which I think is really exciting. I mean, not to go off on a tangent too much, but I think it's really exciting that you have all these different styles, and it's fascinating to sort of see whenever all the different regions match up how those things are going to clash. It actually feels like early versions of, or earlier seasons of League where, like, I mean, Phreak, you cast the Season 1 World Championship where you saw the NA meta and the EU meta collide and sort of seeing how that went down. Anyway, just to get back to the main point, I don't think that North America has the same level of talent in general as Europe. Similar to what Mark said, I think we are possibly getting there. I mean, Team Liquid certainly. It's this really weird thing, right? Because you look at Team Liquid and you're like, that's a team that has a lot of talent. This year, if you asked me, assuming Cloud9 and Team Liquid both make it to Worlds, which one will go further? I want to say Cloud9 because that's usually the case. And so, as an aside, like, it's really hard to talk about talent because you talk about it and then usually or oftentimes that doesn't play out the way you expect it to. But I do think that right now Europe is stronger, and hopefully I won't get any dislikes from Europe fans watching this episode because I said that. Either way, any final thoughts, Dex Factor? Sorry, we talked a lot. Each of us kind of had our own monologue, but I'm curious if you have any quick follow-ups or anything.
I mean, I completely understand where all you guys are coming from. And like, for example, with the meta, I guess for what I was kind of meaning on that was that kind of every team could have their own style. It's a little bit more diversified than years past, where this is literally the only way you play. If you're best team at playing this way, then you're going to be the best. And so, yeah, I understand it's bad use there. But and like I said, I definitely agree that Europe is much better than North America now. It's just I don't see it as like an insurmountable gap that like how it felt with Korea a few years back. It just you had kind of China close and then everyone else and where everybody I've seen some things saying EU's that, and it's like I don't think it's there. They're really dang good.
G2
and
didn't win any games against
fun
Invictus
to
Gaming.
watch.
I'm happy to call G2 the best team in the world, but they won 0 games against IG on their way to be the best team in the world. Which is like, I'm not trying to throw shade at G2, but like they didn't actually beat the best team in the world to become the best team in the world. So like you kind of have to hold out judgment. You go to Worlds, and I maybe still take LPL as the best region.
Oh yeah, and there's that possibility because the only thing we got to see was MSI. So, and I'm really excited for this year's Worlds and how everything unfolds, especially with the chaos in North America and which team ends up. I mean, yeah, you have the teams rising up, but like the whole Cloud9 beating Liquid and TSM, but losing to some of the other teams that they shouldn't. So it's just and other teams losing to others. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Really excited. Thanks for having me on.
Cool.
Talk to you guys later.
Thanks so much for coming on. Have a good one. All right, moving on to the next caller. That was a beefy call. All right.
It was.
A couple quick shout outs. Billy Bob Joe 771, thank you for 15 months. Lieutenant Lucifer Nemsic for tier 2 for 23 months. Holy shit, coming up on 2 years. Gafford Ganger 420 at 6 months. Shadow Clan 98 and Diane Ilria, thank you for the 6. Jack Dickelson is on the show. Thank you, Jack, for calling in. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Nice. I've never been to Pittsburgh, but would like to go someday, maybe. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, I think the analyst desk misdiagnosed Pobelter's problems as a mid laner. I don't think he's a bottom 3 mid laner. In fact, I think FlyQuest's problems stem from Oren's underperformance this split. I think Pobelter plays a very different role compared to other mid laners on any other team. He is primarily the initiator for his team because Santorin has not been able to fulfill that role. I have stats to back it up. He's second highest in kill participation, only after Froggen. He's not even played through as much as Froggen is for his team. And furthermore, his champions are Aurelia, primarily, which he supposedly fed on. But if you look back to playoffs last split against GGS, I think it was game 4. He was again the primarily engaged in that team. So something like that he's been going through.
He's
And-
only played one Aurelia game this split.
Sorry, yeah, it was one Aurelia game, but then there was a Silas game, and then his Azir games have been him making the major team fights for his team, as well as the Corki we recently saw. So yeah, anyway, the point is he plays carry champions, but he still somehow has this engage E role, which screws up his stats like KDA, but he's still crucial to his team, unlike Santorin, who's been like a KDA jungler all split.
February 14 in the Twitch chat suggested that you name 3 mids that are worse than Pobelter.
I would say Demonte, Phoenix, and I would go for PoE actually, because I don't think he's been as crucial to the team's success as Pobe has to FlyQuest.
Ooh, that's a hard sell for me, man. Yeah, I mean, so let me pull up a stat here. I'm trying to get to it. It's taking a second. But for like, I kind of disagree with the idea that he's the initiator for his team. Yeah, he's had some initiating plays, but those Corki packages, I mean, that's kind of just playmaking in a nutshell. I mean, I don't really see that as like it's his job to go in all the time. He's played a lot of Ryze, he's played a lot of Jace, Zoe, Corki, Azir. These are not really initiating champions. And in fact, the games that he's done well, you could say it's because he's maybe been on these with a little bit more agency, but he's gotten absolutely murdered in a couple of his games, like that Aurelia one, like one of the Jace ones. He's had some struggles this season. And I don't think he's a bottom 3 mid laner in terms of like skill. I think he's really good. I think he's one of the top mid laners normally, but for whatever reason this season he's been struggling. And I think it is a team problem in terms of it's not just him who's underperforming on the team. I agree Santorin hasn't been as good as he should be, but it's not about how good someone should be. It's about what they're putting on the Rift. And, PoE has not single-handedly cost his team multiple games, and Demonte hasn't either. So I have a really hard time putting them below Pobelter.
Phreak, do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, it's hard to say. So I spent a little bit of time looking up a bunch of Pobelter stats. He's like very slightly below average in laning as like a fairly team agnostic thing. Basically every stat you ever look at, he is slightly below average. Now, okay, he's on a losing team, so that makes it a bit tough. You're a 9th place team, so you get to go down. But there's always a little bit of chicken and egg where, okay, well, you're a 9th place team because your players aren't doing very well, and players look bad on losing teams. And so, the fact that he leads the league in deaths and has roughly double every other mid laner in the league.
Yeah, that's the one that kills me.
It's like, well, if you're dying and you have a 2 KDA, like, is it you're trying to make the big play to get back in the game that your team is losing? It's not really that's what he's doing. But he's also not feeding so hard in lane that like he's the 10th place laner, right? He's not. He's like the 6th place laner on the 9th place team. So at least early laning wise, at least he's not the problem there. I don't know. It's to me more like teams that aren't very good tend to have high kill participation because you only get kills in team fights. And considering that Santorin doesn't really gank early game, well, there's no kills in laning phase, so you really only get kills when it's 5-on-5s, which means everyone has high KP, which is generally, from what I can tell, the FlyQuest model right now. I think their team coordination is pretty weak. I think they are probably still on the way up, though. Like, the weird thing is, like, they're in 9th place right now, but they're also currently surging, I feel like. So I still like they're a team that can make playoffs and take over for Golden Guardians and Optic. So a lot is going to sound more negative than I think it's going to be in the long run. But they had a really, really bad like first 4 weeks. So a lot of these stats are but because they were horrible.
As we see FlyQuest get better, do you guys think that Pobelter is getting better? Because actually, this is an interesting conversation to transition to.
Yes.
Is Pobelter like a weight on FlyQuest right now, or is he a path to redemption?
The 2 things that mattered to me. So one was Wadid coming in, because I know they were splitting scrims equally between JJ and Wadid. just waiting for Wadid to get his visa, is my understanding. So like they were already on less than optimal practice for every game they ever played up until Wadid came in. And then when Wadid came in, it was still as optimal because he hadn't scrimmed all the games. So it was kind of a warm up. I kind of give them a partial pass in the beginning because they weren't playing at full strength. They brought this player in to play, and he finally is. But I do think that the rest of the squad didn't look very good. I think Pobelter's stats are somewhat deserved based on how he was playing. I think he is playing better now. I think he's been pretty solid. Wadid coming in makes the team look better as well. And so kind of both of those things are going to go upwards for me, and they're going to be why FlyQuest going to win more games.
Yeah, I think the Pobelter himself said around week 4-ish or something, he's like, man, I am playing like dog shit, sorry everybody, kind of thing. And he's like, I should stay away from social media or something, you know, like he's owned up to the fact that he knows that he has not been having a great season. Is a 10th place mid laner? Maybe not, you know, I could be off, but like I think him turning it around in that break week with Wadid coming in, like it's part of that honeymoon period. I think Wadid is an upgrade. He seems to be a very positive guy. All of that combined can be a kind of the kickstart that you need for you to start performing better as well. And like I said, there's no way Pobelter's actually in skill, you know, to kind of go back to our previous thing, the 10th best mid laner. But yeah, double the deaths for a mid laner of anyone else is atrocious.
Yeah, he performed the 10th best up until now. Doesn't mean he's going to continue to be that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jack, do you have any thoughts? Is this swaying you at all?
Not entirely. Like, my point is more that in the team fights, the reason he has so many deaths is because he was making the primary engage instead of someone like Santorin, because Santorin hasn't been playing engaged champions, whereas Pobelter has been forced to make these plays on squishy carries.
I mean, so you can say that's a bad play style then, but that doesn't change the fact that then Pobelter was fucking up the engages, right? Like it wasn't like Pobelter was finding these sick engages that was winning his team.
Yeah,
games.
I want to point out that Pobelter has 1 Silas and 1 Aurelia game this split. He has 2 Azir, 2 Corki, 2 Jace, 1 Zoe. Those are poke champions who never should die.
Yeah.
Like there's 3 Rise games. Cool. He was bad on Rise 2. Like I think about the Rise game. Rise is not the one who flash roots into the team. He was just getting caught split pushing and dying. Like, okay, he played Aurelia back in playoffs. Cool. He's played 1 Aurelia game this year. No, sorry, dog. That's not why you have 30 deaths.
Jack, is that a reasonable take, you think?
I guess. I mean, I still feel like the team lacks playmaking or playmaking from JJ and Santorin, and that's something that someone on the team has to take advantage of, or they just sit there and die and do nothing.
I agree. I hate teams that are bad and sit there and die. And Santorin has 5 Rek'Sai and 2 Elise games. He's not playing Engage Champions. You're right that that's true. And if you watch every Echo Fox game, that's their team also.
And I also agree that Pobelter has always been a team first player. Like he is not a greedy player, and he wants to roam to lanes and help people out. And the fact that they are not working well as a team, he will be the kind of player who looks bad versus a Froggen who, even on a terrible team, will probably not look bad because he's more lane focused. So like, I think there's a lot of reasons that Pobelter has looked worse than he is.
But he's still been bad.
Yes.
Jack, is there any shout outs or anything you want to say as we say goodbye?
No, that's cool. Thanks for having me on the show, and really appreciate what you do, Trav.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
All right, moving on to the next caller. We'll do one more and then we'll take a little break. But
Alrighty.
as we move on to the next caller, a couple of quick shout outs. I love you, chat, has subbed for 20 months. So shout out to chat because this individual loves you. Le Crusette, Nanuko 111, Low Triangle, Pluto 7443, Jordan for 19 months, Mixolot 1990, Girlish Menace, Brawler Yukon, and Johnny Blade 37. We've got our next guest coming in any second.
Wait, where did I move him?
I don't know where you moved them, but they're not.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
Hello?
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada.
Oh boy. All right. I'm gonna look that up. I think isn't it pretty far north?
Yeah, it's basically straight north of North Dakota.
What's the internet like there?
Really good. At least in the it's a major city, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, What do you want to talk about on the show?
Yeah, so my topic was I think this is going to be the year that Cloud9 finally wins the summer split and goes as the first seed for North America. I think they're going to beat TL. I think they match up well against them. And then I think CLG will beat TSM in the gauntlet to become the third seed.
So TSM doesn't go to Worlds again.
No, TSM miss Worlds again.
Okay, CLG goes instead, and Cloud9 wins Summer Split.
Yes.
You've got multiple layers of hot takes here, which I'm very excited about. Why is Cloud9 gonna... You think TL will be in the finals?
Yeah, I think TL will be in the finals for sure.
Why is Cloud9 gonna beat TL in the finals?
I just think they're going to match up well. I think Sven Skaren has shown that he's the best jungler in North America right now. They like to play through Niski and Licorice. Licorice works well against Impact. I think Niski can hold his own against Jensen. And then Sneak and Zazel have shown that they can kind of just neutralize bot lane, which really takes away a lot of Team Liquid's power. So I think they're just going to win through basically top, mid, and jungle and then neutralize bot lane and win through their aggression.
Well,
I have a problem with saying neutralize bot lane. So I actually like a lot of what you said. I think Sven Skaren's incredible. Sneaky and Zazel have been doing very bad this split. And it's not just, oh, well, the stats are weak because Sona Taric or Sona whatever. Like, they're bad by Sona standards and they're bad by non-Sona standards. Like, they're getting hard smashed. It's maybe Sneaky's worst split. I think the rest of the players are quite good. I like how Niski's doing. Again, I really like how Sven Skaren's doing. But your biggest weakness is TL's biggest strength. And then TL's strengths are against, C9's strengths are against TL's other strengths. Because TL have strengths everywhere. So not that it can't be
TL
done.
doesn't have weaknesses.
Well, I know, but like, they're absurdly good through bot lane, and that's the easiest point to attack on C9.
Yeah, I think the one nice thing is when we've seen TL seem to struggle their most, it's usually actually when Smithy underperforms. As much as people like to worry about Impact, he's almost never actually a serious problem. Even though it's funny to laugh at him when he gets solo killed by Ornn or something. Like, it's usually it's still when push comes to shove, he's fine. And it's more Smithy I'd be worried about getting out jungled by Sven for why C9 can win. But I do kind of agree that I'd be really worried about their bot lane. I think outside of lane, Sneaky's still been pretty good. You know, the Sneaky in lane meme, sadly, is kind of holding true this split. He's actually one of the highest damage shares, DPM, and he's, I mean, part of it is because he's playing kind of poke. Like, I think he's played a lot of
low damage share.
Was I looking at the
Of
wrong
all
thing?
bot laner, he's third last.
Was I looking at the wrong
like
thing?
DeMonte's one game.
I cut out, games played, so you need a handful of games played.
Yeah. But like,
Maybe
he's
this
literally only
is-
above DeMonte and FBI on damage share. He is above DeMonte and FBI. That's what I have in Oracle's Elixir.
Mark, did we lose you?
Mark froze.
No.
Just
Rip
no, I'm
Mark.
right here.
Oh, okay,
I'm
you're
talking. I'm lighting up.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
fine.
You're back.
you
I was
stopped-
laughing because I was on the wrong split.
Okay.
My Oracle's Elixir automatically goes to spring because I went there so much. It just automatically.
Yep, that's fair.
Yeah,
Right.
so-
He was good last split. And then,
Yeah,
things
no,
happened.
you're right. I'm looking. I was like, well, actually, I guess I agree. His laning's been bad, but according to these stats, he's been okay. He's not been okay.
He's
no,
not okay.
no.
Wait, is
You're
that the
right.
same stats that you were using to look at Pobelter earlier?
No, I was using Games of Legends for Pobelter stuff.
Okay.
My Pobelter stuff was fine.
Okay. Didn't
Um,
know if we need to issue a retraction.
nope. I'll stand by everything I said. I do not stand by saying Sneaky's been fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So, given the new stats that you're looking at, Mark, what's your take?
I mean, I wasn't quite gonna agree that I think C9 will win. I think there's always a chance. But now I feel even worse about it. It was TL favored before, and it just got a lot more TL favored.
Yeah.
Okay, so we reject your take in saying that Cloud9's going to beat TL.
They
but
can.
Your second take was CLG beats TSM in the gauntlet. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
I just think CLG's playing real well. They're just playing much better as a team. You can see that that TSM isn't really. They're still up in the air about their junglers. I think I think they probably settled on Acadian, but you can just see how well Wiggly's playing, and Ruin doing well. Power of Evil, obviously, he's been really good, and I think this is going to be their year where they push through the gauntlet, and then TSM's going to miss again because I mean they're never usually in the gauntlet, but they've also never won in there. But that's just because they're never there, I guess.
I mean, I think they're 3-3 in their last 3 weeks. Is the only concern I would have for you. I'm trying to look at it right now, but they lost both their games this past week.
CLG.
CLG did.
To be fair, they kind of threw that one. That was a loss, not getting beat.
Okay.
I feel like there's a difference between, when you start splitting hairs. There's a difference between we lost that game and we got beat.
Yeah. Well, but I still think they're 3-3, and one of their wins, by the way, was against FlyQuest in like week 3 or 4, which is not.
Yeah. I mean that's a freebie, but I will give you that 2 of the losses are Cloud9 and Team Liquid, who no one expects CLG to be better than.
Sure.
Like, okay, they beat the teams they're supposed to beat, the losing they're supposed to lose to, and then Golden Guardians and TSM happened, and they're like, okay, is that accurate? Probably not in Golden Guardians side. Has the TSM been accurate? Maybe. TSM's been very inconsistent.
Yeah, I think
about TSM C9. It was like the best league they've played all year in the first 15 minutes, and then it was the worst league they've played all year.
Yeah, I think
worry. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was gonna say I'm way more down with this half of the take. I'm not
sure.
sure I agree. I think this one is one where CLG is playing a little bit better as a team right now than TSM, and that they feel like they have better teamwork. It might even be individually playing better in some positions, but I think TSM has that kind of ceiling factor where like usually TSM, for whatever reason, it's even been across multiple splits and coaching staffs where it's like they rally really hard at the end. It happened last year.
And best
it
of
happened
fives.
last split. Yeah, like every split, it's like, will TSM make playoffs? And then they make playoffs and they knock some people out pretty much. So
yeah,
I have a feeling that once again that's going to happen here, and they will overtake CLG just because I feel like they have some better players and they should become better. But if they had to play a best of 5 right now, I would probably actually bet on CLG.
I worry that CLG, like, okay, there's this big narrative, right? Is CLG finally making the comeback after all these years? Like, CLG belief. I just worry that like the surge of CLG from the gutter is making people potentially believe in them more than they should, right? Like, maybe they are a top 5 team, but maybe that top 5 is like they're the 4th or 5th best team even right now. Like, I don't know. That's kind of my concern here, is that especially given that they just went 0-2 this past week. I mean, again, one of those is Team Liquid, as Phreak pointed out, but but against Team Liquid also they didn't look very good. It's not like that match was not. They were up at certain points in time, but overall, like, I mean, the Team Liquid guys are pretty cocky, but when they walked on, or when they did the interviews and they're like, yeah, we really thought they were going to be better than they showed, like, that's rough. So that's my only concern for CLG, is like, maybe they are way better than they were before, and yet still not good enough. So, and Sand, do you have any thoughts on any of that?
Just one thing back to the Cloud9 thing. I thought what was really interesting was because they kind of like threw their first game last weekend, and then obviously they came back in their second game in the second day against TSM, and I thought that was really interesting what Reaper said, how he said that if they didn't lose the first game in the first week there, they wouldn't have won that second game in the second week based on what they learned in the first day. So I just thought that was interesting that they're really focused on fixing their mistakes and growing as a team.
Yeah.
Well, they're also a bit of a hard team to judge just with how much they swap players in and out. Where it's Licorice and then it's Blabber and it's all that. So it's hard to judge them.
Yeah, like I'm kind of basing this on, I hope they mostly play Svenskeren, and I really hope they don't put in Blabber anymore. I feel like Svenskeren's been leagues better than Blabber this season for sure.
Hard agree. They don't win that TSM game without Svenskeren.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
His engages were
won
the game.
I agree he's the best jungler with the split. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Licorice versus Kuma. I think Licorice is definitely the better player. He's certainly more well-rounded. So, hey, if he's back to full strength, then C9's stronger. And hey, maybe he actually pops off. There's always that chance. I don't know, but
yeah, he's shown himself to be the best top laner in the league. So hopefully he can come back healthy, and so show his full form.
Insane. Thanks so much for calling in. Anything you want to say on the way out?
Just want to say it's my first time watching live. Normally I just listen to the podcast, so thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Hey, thanks so much for coming on. It's always fun whenever we
Thanks.
get somebody on
Have
for
a
the
good
first time. Yeah, have a good one. All right, taking a quick break really quickly.
Oh, now it looks like Travis is frozen.
Hello.
Yeah, I was about to say. So this is when
I'm
you
stuck.
do the whole.
I'm stuck here in my blurred motions.
You're gonna
Yeah, I
see.
see.
You're gonna see. It's just my normal internet dropping for a second, which is what it
love
does.
it.
We get 2 of these spikes every Hotline League, and it wouldn't be the same without it. Am I back?
I can
okay.
hear you on Discord. I don't know about the stream.
Yeah, the stream's back.
Yeah. Every episode we get 2 of them. One in the first hour, one in the second. My internet it just likes to give you a quick
Love
little
it.
drop. Anyway, we're gonna take a quick break before we move on to the next caller to talk about our sponsor, Alienware, for the show. In fact, I'm gonna go check really quickly because I want to make sure it's still running, but it is still running right now. You can go to alienware.com/Travis, and they're having Cyber Week in July. You can save up to $1,700 on Alienware PCs, and they've got all sorts of great deals going. There's some crazy stuff out there. I saw one deal, I can't remember, but it was just an insane discount on one of their desktops. So if you are in the market for anything, go check it out, because this might be the best week to buy for quite some time. And they've got some great deals. By the way, you can use Travis10 off. I'm not admittedly entirely sure how well it stacks up with some of the deals that they've got going on, but it doesn't really matter because you're going to get an amazing deal regardless. But if you want to give it a try, Travis10 off, you can potentially save another 10% on what they're doing. And there's some really cool stuff. In fact, I have a project that I'm going to be probably announcing in the next week or so that they are sponsoring that I'm really excited about. And they're hooking us up. It's fantastic. They also sponsor Mark's cat, which is why the cat is so visible on the screen right now.
One of the top influencers.
Yes, exactly. They sponsor a lot of people in the league scene, and one cat. I don't know. We need to figure out. I don't know what the branding on that cat could be. Could you shave like an Alienware head into the cat's forehead or
I
something?
could put a headset on him. Hold on, let me.
Oh, can you? Because
Oh,
the
This is
cat got
good.
so excited about the
He
potential
saw the
headset
headset coming.
situation. Yeah.
yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to go game. That's what the cat did. Anyway, the point is, thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring the show. We certainly give them different types of promotion than they get at the LCS, and somehow they haven't left us yet. So please check them out at alienware.com/Travis. Desperately need them to think that we are doing good things for them. So that would be amazing. And I'm not kidding, by the way. I don't know how long it'll last, if you're listening to the podcast and what day you are. But either way, check out alienware.com/Travis right now, because the Cyber Week deals that they're doing for July are really incredible, and that would be super helpful. It's in the description on the YouTube video if you're watching that, and I just put it in the Twitch chat as well. Thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring the show. And we're ready for the next caller, Mark, if you want to go grab him.
Alrighty.
Quick shout out to Crouton, who resubbed for 10 months and wrote #Alienware. That was perfect timing. And Grumpy Monk 7 put several Alienware heads on his sub as well. Impossible Katana for 9 months. Sport CTC for 18 months in a row. It's crazy. Year and a half. And Hornstar for 3. We should have our next caller dropping in just a second. Phreak, you're not going
Right
to
now,
comment.
Mark's not in the chat, so I could say it. Oh, now he's back.
He's back. Giuseppe
I
Hack.
could say something, wouldn't hear it.
Giuseppe Hack, where are you calling from?
Hello, I am calling from Boise, Idaho. the city of
Boise?
Phoenix.
Idaho. Every time.
It's actually a Jose Pie hack. I
true?
confirmed it with him.
Yeah, Mark's right.
Okay, Jose Pie Hack.
My name's Joe, just by the way.
Joe, thank you for calling in. Thank you for being a
Yeah,
tip sub
no
as well.
problem.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
All right, so I think there's a problem in the league scene, specifically with Cloud9, where you have an owner, Jack, kind of hoarding North American talent that's stunting the growth of the league. So you look at Golden Glue, Kumo. Jack refuses to sell any of those players or release them from their contracts unless someone buys the entire academy team, which is just absurd. And think Optic Kumo. Like, the league could grow so much if Riot decided to regulate this behavior.
Woo boy. Okay. We're doing this call. I was wondering if this was ever gonna happen. Okay. So first off,
Jack's gonna become like the nefarious like kingpin of the LCS in the fan eyes.
so first off, here I want to say two things. One, so I had heard that there were multiple teams interested in multiple players on Academy during the break between spring and summer split. That being said, somebody made a thread on the Cloud9 subreddit that later got deleted, I think in part because Jack commented in it, and they were saying, they were agreeing with you. They basically had this take. And Jack's response in the thread was he didn't receive any buyout offers for any of his players, or any offers for any of his players during the break. Now, that's really hard for me to understand because
I don't buy it.
some obvious, like 100 Thieves, for instance, probably would have been interested in Golden Glue,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Like there are some very clear instances where I would be shocked if a team was not interested in picking up one of those Academy players. So I don't know if it's a world where he didn't receive a formal offer or what happened.
Yeah.
But
That could be some tricky wording where it's like, well, they asked what the buyout was, and I said 500,000, and then they didn't offer to do it, so I got no offers.
Exactly. It's all semantical.
So I don't know, but I just wanted to put it out there that Jack's only, from my knowledge at least, the only thing I've seen him say publicly about this is that he did not receive any offers, and I don't want us to talk about it as if he hasn't said something on that situation. Do you want to expand any more on this, Joe, before we dive into it? I don't know if you want to explain.
The reason I bring this up is because like there's a lot of theorizing about the esports bubble, and I think the NALCS talent-wise and failing to compete internationally kind of like inflates that bubble, be it real or not. And I think the NALCS could become significantly more competitive if you have a player like Kumo be released and go on Optic. Like that's the solution to Optic's problems, or even like 100T if they get Golden Glue, they keep Someday, who is like probably a top 3 mid or top laner in the LCS. So
the only counter argument I'll make before I let Mark and Phreak dive in on this, but so one, I don't necessarily disagree with you. In a world where those players are on the Academy team and they're getting offers from interesting teams to join those teams, potentially at much higher salary rates or something, that would be unfortunate for those players, and I would hope that there's a path for them to end up on those teams. That being said, I think one counter argument to what you're saying is last year you had a situation where Cloud9 was able to pull players from their Academy roster and make it further at Worlds than any North American team ever has, right? The fact that they had Zazel and Licorice and those guys sitting around the Academy and they were able to tag them in and make these sort of mid-split changes in the summer split or beginning of the split or whatever, an experiment, that gave them a formula that allowed them to go further than ever before. So it's hard for me to 100% agree with the idea that like North America is being held back because those players are on Cloud9, because those players in the past have helped Cloud9 make set new records for North America. That's the only thing that I would point out there. I don't know, Phreak or Mark, if you guys want to dive in.
Yeah. The only thing I have sort of minor opinions on, I guess, is the idea of regulating buyouts and whatnot. And maybe it's actually correct to do this. There's lots of professional sports that, for the health of the sport, like there's salary caps in most professional sports I can think of, which is probably a good thing. What I would say is if you specifically regulated, how much buyouts can be, you then disincentivize top teams to scout talent for academy teams. Because, okay, well, if you can find the best top laner and grow the best top laner, and his name is Kumo, but, Optic says, hey, Jack, here's $5, give me him, and you can't do anything about that, and Kumo leaves, you're like, well, I spent all this time coaching him, and we hired Westrice to be our academy coach, and he's really good at his job, but, well, there's no business case to try then, because we're not going to bench Licorice ever unless he gets hurt. Okay, special case, this did happen, but, like, it's so easy to just like not have a reason to do it. Like TSM switches 0 players out. When they decided they wanted Acadian or Grig, they signed a new jungler for Academy so that both those guys could stay on LCS. Like C9 is the only org really that switches players around. unless there's some kind of emergency like Optic. Well, Crown was sick for a week, so Scarlet played 2 games, but they're not actually moving their players around. So I don't know. To me, like there's a business case for being able to get like for the team making money on scouting players well. I think can be a good thing, and maybe and keep in mind, like if Jack is being a good businessman, if the prices are so high that no one buys them out, then he's just playing academy players really high salaries and never recouping buyout. Like if that's your business case, right? If your scouting department is a moneymaker specifically to find good players and buy them out, well, Jack's not doing that very well then. So, you know, like if that's the
plan,
the plan,
Yeah. My understanding is that Jack is not necessarily refusing to let orgs buy out individual contracts. Like if you want to pay $500,000 for Kumo, I think you could, like if that was a competitive offer. But in the instance of Cloud9, the way I understand it is that he wants to sell like the entire academy roster, which is obviously just not fiscally responsible for a lot of these organizations.
So I'm curious where you heard that, because it was a rumor that I had heard, and I mentioned it entirely, I think, as a rumor on the show. And I don't know if that has like...
That's where I heard it. Yeah, I heard it on the show, so I'm not entirely certain of. Like,
so I don't. So I heard that at one point in time, and that was, I believe, towards the end of spring split or very beginning in the off season. Again, that was a rumor, and I tried to explain that it was a rumor because I'd only really heard it from one source. But it also fell in line with how Cloud9 had behaved in the past when it came to challenger teams and whatever. I wonder if that could have changed over time. So, I mean, the obvious instance on why that would have been smart for him to think that is because you had the Optic stuff happening and the Clutch stuff happening, and you think, okay, well, maybe one of these new orgs coming in will just buy out my roster and they'll have like this fresh team or something. I would imagine, this is super speculative, but and now we're speculating off of a rumor, but I would imagine that as time went on, maybe he'd be more open, you know, if it becomes clear that he's not going to sell the entire roster, he'd be more open to individual deals. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I think it's super hard because of what Phreak just said, right? Like, they do a really good job of pitting these academy players in. My biggest concern is not even necessarily like, oh, it would suck if it's sad that Kumo can't go to Optic because that could make Optic better, because I actually don't know how much that makes Optic better. Like, is Optic now suddenly going to Worlds? And if they're not, like, how much does that help the teams that are going to Worlds?
That's weird. Yeah, it's always way better for a good player to actually get onto an LCS team, especially potentially a playoff team. Like,
well, okay, here's a counter argument to that. What if Kumo being on Cloud9 Academy makes, because they scrim a shit ton, makes Licorice way better because they're able to talk about the stuff, and then Licorice does way better for Cloud9 when they make it.
And it even makes Kumo better.
Yeah,
right.
But that...
And then there's also the world where, because Optic's top laner isn't that good, you have a team now with that doesn't get as much for scrimming either.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
it goes mafia.
It goes both ways. Like, I think teams should be incentivized to hoard talent, like Phreak is talking about. Like, you want to make your organization the best organization you can be. And then the question becomes, is it more valuable to sell them off for 6 figures ish?
Yeah. Some payday.
Some payday, who knows how much? Or is it better to just keep them under you so you're the best team in the league forever?
Well, and the only thing I was going to get to, by the way, is I hope all these guys who have become dramatically more valuable, I think, over the past year, are seeing compensation accordingly, right? Because that would be my disappointment, is if, Mark, do you disagree? You don't think they should be compensated accordingly?
No, I'm saying there's no way they're renegotiating their contracts as academy players.
Well, that's why I'm saying I hope that
right. That's why I made that would face. Suck, right? Because that was, I mean, that's why I made the face, because of all my years of hearing people renegotiating, it's basically only star players who are able to renegotiate. I haven't heard anyone who was like, unless they were dramatically underpaid.
I'm curious where you guys would rate Golden Glue and, let's say, Kumo among the other. Like, is Golden Glue the 5th best mid laner? And
no.
Okay.
Probably not.
Kumo?
Right. Well, I mean,
I think Golden Glue's probably a bottom 3 mid laner.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fine. My only point is, it would suck if Golden Glue signed this long thing a while ago and is not getting paid very well, but if he joined 100 Thieves, could be making 300 grand or something, maybe 3 times whatever his academy salary is. I mean, again, I don't know his academy salary, but you get the point. If he could be making
Right.
3 times more than he currently is. Mark,
Right. I
what
mean,
did you want to talk about though?
I want to talk about the fact of like the business model that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Like the idea that it's a better business decision and more incentivized to make these players good and then sell them off. I think the better thing to do is, and probably what Jack is actually doing, from this idea of we have good scouting, we have good development coaches with Westerice and stuff, and then our players become good enough. Then when our players start slumping or we find an upgrade like Zazel over Smoothie and Licorice over Impact and stuff like that, you can move them around pretty freely. And it gives you more flexibility and the ability to stay competitive for longer than a team who has to completely build from the ground up when things aren't working out. And so, it might be smart sometimes to sell someone who you don't have a future with away for a quick $100,000 or something. But if that player is really good and they're not costing you that much to keep a hold of, it makes your team, it makes your opponents weaker, and it could potentially make you better down the road. Plus all that stuff you're talking about with scrim culture and having more talent within your organization to make each other better. Like, it does feel very stacked against trading people away.
From an incentive standpoint.
For a quick payday. And that's why I think, the idea of regulating a buyout sounds good to me, and making some sort of language around, like, making it so people can't exactly be like, I signed this guy to a 2-year deal for the $75K that is the minimum now for Academy, I think it is. And he sits on my bench for 2 to 3 years while he becomes one of the best players in Academy and doesn't get a shot. Like, that sounds sad to me.
Yeah, I think the question kind of becomes with my take, do you want orgs or franchises to stay dominant for a longer period of time, like Cloud9, for example, or do you want the LCS overall to improve? And I think that's where Riot should come in and regulate the league, similar to like how the NBA works.
So one problem with that though is like, these are businesses, and the point of a business is to make money. And the more you constrain businesses and the more you regulate businesses in the very general sense, these for-profit businesses, the like, guess what? We're all we all work together, like Riot and Team Liquid and C9 and everyone else. Like, if we want to change terms, like, they have to agree to it, and they probably get something back for that as well. So like these are businesses talking to businesses, not just like, well, we'd love if the LCS was great. Well, Jack wants C9 to be great. And like, so that is a hard fight to pick and a hard fight to win, just in like the pragmatic sense.
And I also agree that, like, if the rules are set up in a way that allows Jack to do this, Jack should 100% do this. I'm I might be sad that I think Kumo and Golden Glue are better than some of the players not playing in LCS, and I don't know what's stopping them from ending up on those teams other than potentially buyouts. But in the world that we live in, like, I think Jack is doing the right thing, and I would never say Jack's being mean or anything. Like, you operate within the system that's been created, and you don't owe it to anyone to harm yourself for the betterment of these other entities. So like, I hold no issue with Jack if this is what's going on.
The other only concern that I would have about regulating it is, clearly the Cloud9, I think that the Cloud9 environment or ecosystem is part of the reason why these Academy players are able to get really good.
Yep.
I think most people would agree with that, right? If Jack knows that, at a certain threshold of buyout, he will lose his players, is he now disincentivized from expending resources and energy and all that stuff? Because at a certain point in time, now, if his Academy players get good enough, they can just leave him. And so by creating these regulations, do you disincentivize teams from investing more into Academy the way that Cloud9 has? Because now, like, that work could not be worth it for them later on.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't quite think so, because like, if you look at the C9 Academy roster and their top lane, like, they're not even playing Kumo and Academy, like, they're playing Jukes. So I definitely understand that argument with Golden Glue, but I think it's definitely reached a point where Riot, as the governing body of the LCS, be it a business or not, should allow for growth in the league. When there's like a third man, I think this is an opportunity where they can step in. Obviously, I don't actually know. I'm just a spectator, a fan of the game, but I think there's room for some involvement.
Joe, thank you so much for your call. Is there anything you'd like to say on the way out?
I will say, Travis, thank you for doing more interviews with like Korean speakers like Impact, Core JJ. It's really nice to see their takes and get to know their personalities. Anyways, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
Thank
one.
you.
And moving on to the next caller, we've got a couple more subs. Kioftium, 4 months. Really need to know how to say your name.
And I'm so glad Mark can't hear me right now.
Yeah, Mark cannot hear you if you want to say
Good.
something.
Yeah, Mark is a pleasant gentleman.
Okay. Well, I know you don't like it whenever somebody hears something nice about them from you, so I'm glad you were
Yeah,
able to say that.
exactly. So I never
Kitskune-
say anything.
Kitsune, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Honestly,
K.I.
most people just call me Kid, so it doesn't really
Kits,
matter.
where are you calling from?
Cypress, California.
Cypress, California. Is that in southern or northern?
Southern, it's like just south of Long Beach.
Oh, okay. That's weird that I didn't know that because I lived in Long Beach for 5 years. Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So I kind of hope that I'm wrong because I'm a 100 Thieves fan, but I think subbing in Ryu and Fake God, although it makes like the team cohesion better, isn't a step in the right direction. And it's kind of just based off of the interviews I've seen you do with people like Double Lift and Impact and the kind of the top tier teams, where they say Riot's kind of going more towards a higher skirmishing team. And so because there's more skirmishes going on, most of the macro play kind of loses its point, and it's more based on kind of individual mechanics.
This is a crazy take because it's hard for me to see a world where like this team that just kept losing and then finally started having wins made a wrong decision. So, I mean, I don't think there's too much for you to expand on there, but it sounds like you're just basically saying like this is not going to lead them to it's short-term success instead of long-term success, because long-term they're going to struggle in this current, I don't want to say the word meta because I think that'll trigger Phreak, but in this current design of the game.
Well, just to clarify as well, you're not. Are you even saying like?
$20. I guess here's like the general point is that obviously adding Ryu and back into the team has added kind of a better synergy, which allows them to team fight better, which is kind of a given. But by taking out talent like Sunday and not making a trade, and kind of bouncing off the topic of your last caller of trying to find make a trade where we can get Golden Glue or even Pobelter, like let's say FlyQuest doesn't do well this split, and I know Pobelter's not doing the best, but if you added him where he did have synergy with Afromu, like
Flag spike for anyone watching the VOD.
because I mean, they're eventually just going to kind of fizzle out, because I definitely don't think that they're in the top three.
Are we safe to continue this conversation?
I
Is
mean,
your
I think
internet
so. We had like
stable?
2 lag spikes.
I don't think chat has any fucking clue what we're talking about.
Yeah, maybe Mark, do you want to give a quick summary?
Okay, so Kitsune, let me know if I get this wrong at all, but basically you're saying that despite Ryu coming in and making 100 Thieves better in the short term, it's probably the wrong decision, because
I can see Travis on the Skype call though. So, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
the
I mean
upload's
Skype's not
going
the
great.
problem. Yeah, I keep seeing that like I have the Twitch chat window open and it keeps
Yeah, I'm
keeps
seeing the F's in all chat.
yeah, I've seen a lot of
Hello.
F's.
Hello.
I
Oh,
hope.
but he's got a
Oh
call.
wait, I'm back. I can
Yeah.
see myself animate on the stream again.
Yes.
Hey, can you tell Kobe to stop downloading all the porn right now? We're trying
I
to.
just went and talked to him.
Patching PBE.
The nice thing is when everybody
Who knows?
refreshes, it gives a big surge in view count because it includes the old ones and the new ones. Oh no.
Interesting.
Wait.
I'm seeing a lot of F's again.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh God, man, internet just hates 100 Thieves.
Or it really likes 100 Thieves and doesn't want to hear everyone trash talk them.
Oh, that's
And
true.
doesn't
Yeah.
want us to potentially agree with you.
Well, I checked everything, and it looks like it's mostly good.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to keep going if you are.
I mean, we can just-
The problem is it works for a second, and then we lose it again.
That's okay. This time it'll be perfect.
Everyone tweet at Kobe and tell him to stop downloading all the porn.
Oh, fuck. Anybody watching the VOD can just see my stress and anxiety right now, and nothing else. Just my frustration that we're.
There are combinations of players that just don't work. That you can take the best players, or what would be the best players, and just sometimes that's just not a team for reasons that you can't foresee, but it just ends up being true. I think that just kind of happens sometimes. And so I think the old 100 Thieves configuration with Bang and whoever the mid laner was, whether it was Huhi or Soligo, and Someday, just nope, just not a combo that works. You know what? They're missing a shot caller or something.
We'll give it a couple more minutes, and if it doesn't resolve, then I guess we'll call it.
A combo that works. I think it's okay to fast fail a lineup.
I don't think I disagree with that. I think it's just the general idea, like having amazing. Oh, so adding amazing team synergy because you had an aggressive shot caller, kind of roaming around the map, right? I just look back to the old 100 Thieves, right, where when you were looking at Someday wasn't receiving a lot of help on the old 100 Thieves. He was kind of just left on an island on his own. And yeah, there were times where he didn't have the greatest games, but it wasn't like he ever lost lane super hard, right? Mm-hmm. But the rest was the synergy with the other four. And I think having Soligo there obviously wasn't the best, but then side grading yourselves out of Someday, not even side grading, but downgrading.
Definitely downgrade as a player, sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's where it's different.
Well, turns out you need your import slot for a different player.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we're training Ryu for someone like Pobelter or even
bringing back Ryu was great because now they're winning. And I think, Ryu in the current meta isn't even like that bad. Like, I agree his individual prowess is not super high, but we're talking about a meta where, for the most part, you want to be proactive and making plays. And Ryu's actually really good at that. He's really good at playing the map and working with his team and shot calling and finding things to do. So, like, yeah, he's not going to 1v1 Bjergsen, Niski, and all these people. And, you'll probably never win a championship right now with Ryu without like having superstars in other positions, but he is still really smart about the game. I think Ryu's actually pretty good, and so yeah, I don't know what you're getting with Soligo in the mid lane doing nothing. He had a 5%, 4%. It was like tiny. I think Soligo could be a player in the future, but it wasn't now. And you've ran that test, and he is not LCS caliber mid laner right now. So I don't think sticking with him would have made any sense. I think now you're giving Fake God time to get better. I think the Someday experiment hasn't worked. He had one of the highest jungle proximities in the league, and it was hurting Bang. And now you've swapped things around, and now Bang is looking better because they're playing more towards him, and he seems like a real win condition. And you're just getting more data around your team and players that currently exist on your roster. So when this offseason ends, you can go forward and say, this is the stuff we need. We can win with Bang, Afro, Fake God, and Amazing. Let's go find the mid laner that we need that completes this roster. Or maybe you find, you can start making those kinds of decisions because you tested this roster and see that it works, as opposed to just saying, Bang didn't work, fuck him, let's get Bang out of here or something. So I think the experimentation was great. Even in the long term, it was great.
Did you guys mention, so sorry, I've been in and out, but just That's also okay. For chat's purposes, are we under the opinion that Ryu and Fake God can continue to succeed in this new League of Legends meta?
Yeah, I think they're fine.
That's why
they are succeeding.
I think that's what's the hard part is, again, as a fan, you sit there and I'm enjoying watching 2-0 weeks from 100 Thieves, obviously, but it's one of those, if your goal, which it's kind of a long shot at this one, but if your goal is to make it to Worlds, right, I just don't see it being with what you're doing now. Like, it's like,
sure, what they were doing before, though, is the problem.
I'm sorry?
Like, but it was certainly not what they were doing before. Like,
Absolutely.
it's nice to have great aspirations, but not every team can be Team Liquid, where they have the best players in 5 roles, or at least second best in 5 roles. Like, sometimes you got to build, and sometimes that's just what it is. Like, I think so many teams have this idea of like, well, but if we're gonna win Worlds, we should be able to do X. It's like, you're a 9th place team, dog. Get wins now. Like, and I understand like the idea of wanting your favorite team to do really, really well. But that ain't 100 Thieves. Like, they're a 4th place team at best right now. They're probably a 5th place team. Be happy with that. And like, if Fake God's really good in a year, now you're a 3rd place team. If Bang gets back to like 2015 Bang form, all right, now you're a top 2 team. Like, that's just what it comes down to, though, is like hoping that someday will now carry us and magically we have synergy again. Too bad. Like, that's not happening.
Right. I mean, like, the point of like wanting to have Worlds aspirations is definitely something teams should have, but like sitting there in 10th place, losing another game with Saligo and Someday doesn't get you any closer to those aspirations.
Yep.
Making these moves and seeing, oh, Fake God might actually be a piece worth keeping next year and maybe even be a starter. Maybe Ryu can even kick around. Like, Someday or Amazing's actually picking up wins too, and you just have more information about what's working versus just sitting there being like, yep, this still isn't working. Yep, this still isn't working.
Yeah. Hey, Kits, thanks so much for calling in. Sorry we had some internet issues, but hopefully you were able to still have the conversation you wanted to have.
Oh, no worries. I just also want to say your interview with Ovely, Rick Fox, and Double Lift was money. So
thank you.
If you want to check it out, go watch it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Have a good one and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
All right, on to the next caller. It looks like the internet has stabilized. Sorry for anybody. Well, sorry to the Twitch chat who were watching it live and got a lot of frustrations, and sorry to anybody listening to the VOD who had to get through that. But hopefully everything is good now. We can all be happy.
I'm happy.
Okay, good. That's really what I want.
Man, Mark really is a nice person. I like him a lot.
Wow, so much praise. Thank you to Sadistic Nero for 8 months in a row, Exogen Shan for 11, Rice Man, NVS, and Real Foxy 1 for 20 months. Should be getting our next caller here in just a second as Mark is off grabbing them. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Oh, Neon Puddles, thank you for the 10 months in a row. Good to see you. Mark is slowly making his way back here. Phreak, you're not going to Comic-Con, are you?
Nope.
A lot of people are going, and I kind of wish I was going, but
I will spend my week playing TFT ranked and casting League of Legends.
Oh yeah, ranked hits in just 2 days. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, it's really unlucky the way my schedule works because Monday and Tuesday are my days off, and patches come out on Wednesday, so I'm back at work whenever there's a new League patch.
Yes, well, I've heard a lot of the casters play League of Legends, so I feel like you could probably still get away with it.
Yes, but I'm just, I can't just sit at home
Zone
streaming.
Out. Yeah. That's fair. Hey, Robert is joining the show. Robert, where are you calling from?
New Jersey, dude. New Jersey.
Okay. Thank you for being a Twitch sub. What do you want to talk about?
So my topic is that TSM is actually way better than they look right now, and that they're just not playing their best style, and that if they actually played like the more TSM style and the style that they know they can get wins with, yeah, they would get wins, but they would be like way worse going into playoffs.
Gotcha.
What do you think is TSM style? What is the style they should be playing?
Well, if you look at like the style where they've won a lot of games, there's 2 main things that I've noticed from the season. One is their Sonateric is very strong, and 2 is that if you look at the earlier games, it was more of a laid back and trying to like punish and make more so like moves around the map towards the mid game rather than trying to accumulate a really big early game lead. But right now, like the teams that are actually doing really well and teams that like you think of when you think of like world contenders, they're all teams where it's that early game where they can actually stomp in and actually make proactive moves. And TSM has never been like the proactive team. They've been more of the reactive team. And I think they're just trying to play more of a proactive style where the idea is correct, but like the mechanics just aren't there yet. And there could be, you can look at multiple games from this, like Sven on Yasuo. The whole idea in that CLG game was a really good idea, but the execution was probably the worst I've ever seen. Bjergsen on Rumble, so many mistakes on Rumble, and it's just like if he had more practice or if they're just mechanically more skilled in those specific champions where they haven't really like played much of, those games could go differently. but that's more of a time investment thing.
Right.
You want to go, Mark?
No, you got it.
Yeah. I agree with you on the idea that they did things they're not experienced at and were clearly bad at. Yasuo dying for a turret plate, Rumble not understanding you should ult before you overheat. Like, you're absolutely right. There are things you point at, be like, wow, you do not know how to play this champion very well. And those are absolutely going to be costing games. And so that part I agree with. Absolutely the case. I think that is probably inarguable, that they're costing themselves games by trying things out that aren't very good. So then through that logic, your point of TSM's better than they look, as long as they understand what they're doing, because there's always the point of like, well, if you just did X, you wouldn't have thrown the game. If you just knew how to take Baron, you'd be fine. If you just didn't have bad drafts, and like sometimes they think they were drafting well or playing Baron well or whatever. I like to hold out hope that they understand what they're doing. On that lens, I probably agree with you. But
I mean, like, Bjergsen has gone on like interview and said how like he'll look at those games and be like, we screwed up. Like, we could have won that game if we just played it right. And it wasn't like we got ran over. It was more of we ran over ourselves by like being stupid as hell.
Sure,
Right, but I think the point Phreak's making is like, you're not guaranteed to suddenly stop making mistakes just because you know that you made a mistake. So like,
No, and I agree with that. But at the same time, how are you ever going to improve if you don't actually try and work on things where,
Well, I don't know if
it's
you-
not
if
just
you're
about
working on things-
scrims. Like, you need to also be able to say, all right, they have to be stage ready for it. And one of the best ways to like get that practice for being stage ready is, well, practicing it on the stage. So I think them trying out different styles for like two different kinds of comps, they didn't execute on either of them, but
yeah,
I'd rather see that than be seeing like the same, like either Sonateric or just like control-y, wait till like scale kind of style that we've usually seen from them the past year and a half. And
sure.
it just, I don't know, I feel like look at playoffs last year, right? They were figured out. I honestly think that they were figured out by TL, and that the series shouldn't even go on to 5 games, but it did anyway. And TSM rightfully lost that series because they just were easily played. They were predictable, and when you can target that, it just makes your team way worse. And when you're going into international, it like, yeah, it may look worse now, but it's things that you kind of have to do so you can get better.
I don't want to get into the TSM versus TL series because I really disagree with what you said about that series. But that's also not the point of this call.
Yeah,
so
it's
I don't
not
want
the
to
point
get
of the call either.
Yeah, so I don't want to get into that. I will say I largely agree with what you're saying. A lot of it comes down to some of the specifics of it. Like, I agree. I don't want to see them playing Corki and Azir and playing a reactive style with Sejuani and scaling to late game where they'll probably pick up more wins versus bad teams, but
Yeah,
probably
like,
not become a better
you can
team.
exploit teams that are like trash. Like, how about you actually try and
Right.
improve?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I agree with the large idea that what they are doing is the right decision to do long term, whether or not the specific choices they're making are the right ones, like the Yasuo and stuff like that, and the Rumble. Whether or not those are the specific right champs, I like the idea of what they're doing. But to Phreak's point, they're not. You can't assume that they're better than they are just because they have another style they could be playing, because there's no guarantee that they become good at the style they're trying to do. So it's kind of weird to say that they're actually better than they are. What you're really saying is they have a lot of potential to get better under this style.
Well, what if I like said that if you, let's say you take Team Liquid, right, and you say, well, what if they switch their style and try to play like
what if
more
they
of a
play
G2
aggro?
style? Like, yeah, what if they play super
Yeah,
aggro?
yeah.
Like, I guarantee you that will not work because it just does not work with that type of team. And people could look at that and say, oh, well, Team Liquid's like losing. It's because they're bad. It's like, well, no, it's because they're trying something different. It's because they're trying a style that they're not good with, that they're trying to be comfortable with.
Right, but if they committed to that style that they're bad at, I wouldn't say, oh, well, they're much better than they are, because they're committed to trying to learn that style. And then I wouldn't say they're that good.
But so I think on an interesting example, this is in the past. Actually, I think whenever Double was on TSM, that second year, I remember them saying, hey, we're experimenting a lot. because we realize we don't have enough styles, and that's part of the reason why we're losing, because we know we can ultimately win finals or whatever, but it's like week 3, and so we're going to try different stuff.
Yep.
But that's not really what's happening here with TSM, right? I mean, I know that they're kind of swapping in junglers or whatever, junglers. But...
So here's my sort of synopsis on TSM. So I think they are a top 3 team or a top 4 team, and they can arbitrarily lose 3 games this split that they would have won for free by trying stuff out and still make playoffs and then just shape up. So I think they, like TL, like C9, have carte blanche to do whatever they want in the regular season as long as they're staying in top 4. So far, this is accurate.
I agree
right?
with that.
So far, they're doing this, so it's fine. But again, it comes down to, do TSM think they should be a fast team? Do they suck at it all 18 games, go into quarterfinals of playoffs, still try to be a fast team, and get 3-0'd by CLG? If that's what TSM does, then they're not a good team. If TSM knows, hey, we're a top 2 team by playing team fight, and don't worry, we've got it in the back pocket, and they make sure that they're ready to play team fight if they need to, and once they get to week 9, they're like, well, we try to be fast, we can't be fast to be a team fight team, then that's fine. Like, then you're right, and they really are like that good team who is trying stuff. But like, we don't know which one is true. Like, we're waiting to see which one is.
I can guarantee you right now that like they realize that too. They probably realize, hey, we're better with this style. We can pick up wins with this style. I mean, some of the players even said that, but at the same time, I'm not saying they should be extremely aggressive. That has never really been the TSM style, but you need to like be able to pick up pace and say, we have a lead, let's push it. And in the C9 game, you saw they were able to, first 15 minutes, you're like, wow, this is like insane. But then it all just goes downhill because honestly, I can't even think of like a reason why, like the whole turnaround. Like
they didn't play that game that well. They actually got 0 kills with all their roams topside, and the 3 kills that they picked up in the early game were C9 contesting a Rift Herald that they very poorly contested.
But then when you look at like that scenario and then how they were able to like convert that into a bigger lead and then start converting things and using pressure around the map, using the globals, it was really well played, really well orchestrated.
Right, but using your own logic of like, oh, they can learn this style and play it better, that's also true of the people they're playing against, who are also probably trying things and are using Kumo and pick 3 losing lanes. Like, you're not like one team just because they have potential to improve doesn't mean another team does. So like, I look at that game and I say, yeah, TSM could play that a lot better, and there's a lot of things to learn. That's equally true for C9. And so as well as like how the draft could play out and all that stuff. So like, I also don't think that they are guaranteed, if they just pick late game, to be a great team, because they were playing a lot less proactive prior to Rift Rivals, and they were still losing a fair number of games. So like this, I think TSM will be good, and I agree that this style that they're experimenting with is probably temporarily making them worse, but would they be better than C9 and TL even if they were try-harding their hardest? I don't think so.
I don't think in a best of 5, but I think in a best of 1 they could definitely like take off a game.
We'll have to see how things go. We'll have to see how things go. But I appreciate your call.
Future holds.
And I think it's an interesting discussion for sure. And this is one of those calls where like maybe all this works out and TSM wins summer finals, and then I get a ton of views because
at the same time, I could just backfire
with the Yasuo Greg
get
spotlight
completely destroyed, and it's like, oh, all that work was for nothing.
No, don't worry. No one will remember this call if that ends up happening, because everybody moves on. People only remember the calls that ended up being true. Nobody remembers.
No. You can add me on anything, on either the right or the wrong. I don't give a fuck.
Okay.
Add me on whatever. I don't care. Someone's gonna do it.
Thanks so much for calling in.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything you want to say on the way out?
Been a huge fan for a long time, Travis. Keep rocking it.
Me too.
Love the dad bod,
Travis.
Love the dad bod? I'm trying not to rock the dad bod anymore, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, what up?
You got tons of damage in that mustache, man.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate you.
See you guys.
Say anything to Mark?
See you.
No, he doesn't need to.
Mark. Honestly, the only thing I can say about Mark is that his pussy's pretty cute.
Goodbye. Have a good one. All right.
I don't know why you tempted him like that.
His cat is cute.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did it.
Okay, moving on to the last 2 callers.
You brought that on yourself, Travis.
You did. This is all your fault, Travis.
This is called victim blaming, by the way. I just want to be clear.
Mark himself's pretty cute. I just want you to know that.
Phreak, how does this show compare to what? Because I'm always fascinated when you guys who do like the dive and all that stuff, you come on the show, and it's like I feel like you probably end up in conversations you would never have on that show because
because you just invite people like Mark Z and Shadow Panther into the Discord, and we're on the topic.
Yeah, Shadow Panther, welcome to the call. Where's the show?
Hello.
Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Kenora, Ontario, Canada. Is actually 2 hours east of Winnipeg.
Oh, nice. Several Canadian callers tonight. How's Kenora? You said Kenora?
Kenora.
How is it?
Humid.
Really?
Nice.
In Canada?
Yeah, we get. Well, I guess probably not humid for you. Humid for us.
Oh, okay. So some moisture. Either way, what do you want to talk about the show tonight?
So what I want to talk about is the fact that the NA talent issue is caused by the fact that we have focused more on nice players rather than good players. And I think this mostly started around the breaking point and the doublelift being kicked from CLG time period.
Okay. I was expecting you to say another name when you said that.
This is interesting.
Okay.
As someone who like works with a team day in and day out and has for more than 9 years at this point by being at Riot for a long time, you kind of need to like the people you work with, at least to a certain degree. Like there's a certain amount of like being able to like put up with stuff because it's your
you work
job,
with Mark.
Yeah, and I like
loosely.
Mark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think there is like. Again, I think there is some room for nuance. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's a lot easier to practice 12 hours a day when you like your teammates, and sometimes that's what it takes. Like, you need to practice 12 hours a day if you want to be a top team. And dude, if Dardoch just hard flames you every game you ever play, and you get up on stage and he says, things like, "All right, I've been reading books on how to be a good leader. I don't think you guys are worth it." You're like, man, I don't want to play that game. Like,
Counterpoint. H2K made it to semis with Forgiven on their team.
That's true. And now no one plays with Forgiven anymore.
So that's where I was about to go with it. Is like, I agree, Europe's probably a little more toxic, and they probably just culturally or whatever reason have a higher barrier for some slight level of toxicity. But even they're like legendarily toxic and difficult to work with players have still phased out over the years. It's not like, who's there's Forgiven. I don't have him with Gilius, but he's been in and out of teams for a while. He's had a hard time locking a job down. It's not like, man, this guy is a piece of shit, but he's always on the #1 team, and it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there's a line. I think there's a line between Dardoch and, for example, my theory on why Echo Fox subbed Lorlo in the 1 week. If you watched their web series the week before, you can see him having a conversation with one of the coaches about how he's upset that their power picks aren't doing anything, but the enemy's power picks are carrying the game. If that's why he got subbed out for a week, was then, is it right for that kind of criticism? It didn't look like it was really an argument. It looked like it was more of a rant from what I saw. But it's questionable on whether is that something you should drop your best player for a week? Or
Lorlo is not their best player. Solo is their best player by far. Or do you mean Solo?
Yeah, they dropped Solo for Lorlo for a week.
Yeah. So there's things like.
Oh, go ahead, Phreak.
There's things I know, and there's things I can say, and there's things I can't say. So I'm just figuring out what to answer this question for. I think Solo is definitively their best player. 100% hands down, Solo is the best player.
I've also heard he's toxic as fuck.
I have also heard that. So but he's playing most of the games. He was out for 1 week. But now he's back.
So Shadow Panther, here's a question for you. So, one, do you agree that there are probably people in the LCS, for instance, Solo potentially, who are difficult to work with and are probably pretty toxic?
Yes.
Do you think that any of those players are on good teams?
Okay, currently, I don't think there's many, if any, But as the example, if when Doublelift was having attitude issues in CLG, if no other top team ever wanted to take a risk on Doublelift ever again, would that be
I think Doublelift
positive
is
for
not
the
a good
scene?
example for this because Doublelift is an anomaly among LCS players.
He's just that good. Yeah.
And
Well,
also
yeah,
from a
that's a good
marketing
point.
standpoint, he's incredibly valuable, and
Yeah, he's
And-
that good and that
players
popular.
still want to play with him even when he's been a toxic piece of shit because he's Doublelift, right? Like you can't.
And he probably changed a little bit. He's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
matured since the fucking CLG
Maybe, I don't
season.
know. I hang out with him sometimes.
CLG season 1, 2. I can't believe anyone is like CLG season 1, 2, and 3 anymore. You know, like that just doesn't exist anymore, and that's the environment that he had to slowly transition his way out of. You know, I can't imagine that people are like cursed with elements and Saint like drunkenly bitching each other out, and then
Yes.
going and
Yeah,
playing
that's a good
together.
point.
Yeah, like that. Those days are over, and so like there's still toxic teammates, and people get mad that they lost, and they don't think their teammates are very good. And there's still attitude issues everywhere in each scene. So it's not like only the best. You know, I'm sure Doublelift is not that nice to his teammates sometimes, for sure. But I don't think he's as bad as he was when he got kicked from CLG.
But to the point, like I think Dardoch is better than Wiggly was last year, and yet Wiggly was playing for CLG, and you know I think there's lots of cases of this where, I mean, to your point, you are absolutely right that there are cases of teams making the choice over someone they want to work with over someone who is right now a better player, and that is humanity and work relationships in a nutshell at the very beginning of it.
And by the way, and I think this like the players that tend to wash out of teams that are toxic don't tend to wash out of the top teams. It's not like, wow, everything was going great with TSM, and then they got rid of Svenskeren, and now it's like a terrible thing. I'm not saying Sven is toxic. I'm just listing as an example.
Niski's in chat and said he is, so don't worry, you're right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're in there.
That's actually perfect timing. I didn't even see that. But let's say, you know, like it is easy to decide to depart to remove a player when you end up not making playoffs, and that person was toxic as fuck, and you're like, well, they're certainly not good enough to lead us to success right now. So why do we keep this jerk around? You know, and sometimes those players get better and they get reformed and everything's great. But I just, it's really hard for me to buy the take of like, wow, if only
we'd win worlds if only people played Dardoch.
Yeah, exactly. Like if only we had more people being toxic as fuck, you know, but being good.
To be fair to Shadow Panther, he's not necessarily saying we need Dardochs and Forgivens, but maybe people are too de-incentivized to be free to share their emotions. You know, he's right. Maybe that's another angle to look at this.
Yeah,
really quickly. So here's one little blurb that I will give. So interesting things happened at Rift Rivals and afterwards, and I was actually just talking. I don't think Peter will be angry at me for exposing
Spill
this
the beans,
conversation
Travis.
today. But
It's the tea these days. Come on.
So you can look at the Impact interview I did today. We kind of talked about it there, but also on the Hotline League, the live Hotline League at Rift Rivals, Peter asked the EU coaches, hey, the feedback culture there, is it like the players that give feedback to each other, or is it the coaches? And Grab said it's all the players giving feedback, and even if they get like whatever intense, like that feedback culture drives the team to be a lot better. And that was something that Peter had said to me today, that there was a departure for Team Liquid that he credits some of their recent success to. Is in the past they had this like top-down feedback culture where they could only ever you know, like any kind of criticism really had to come from the coaches. Now they actually had this thing where they all kind of got shit off their chest after Rift Rivals, and it's all driving them to be better. And so I do agree that, interestingly enough, even though, you know, every sports movie would tell you that everybody should be buddy and be family members, sometimes you do need to be a dick to somebody, and that can be helpful. I do think that, to your point, though, there is a limit on how much, you know, that can go.
Yes, I totally agree. I don't think Dardoch's behavior has been warranted. I think I would say he's by the seams of it improved at least a bit.
Yeah.
Probably not enough as of yet. Maybe a year of academy will fix that, but I do think there is a line that needs to be drawn of like, well, if you're where you actually pick skilled players, even if they have a bit more attitude issue, and then maybe put a little bit more into coaching staff to figure out how to mold those players into going from toxicity to ego.
Yeah, I think just the idea of, even not being like, oh, is this player toxic or not, but just making sure that people can give the feedback that they're feeling as long as it's not going too far. And maybe North America's coaching culture has gone too far with like the hand holding in the feedback sessions.
Shadow Panthers, thanks
Yeah,
so much.
that makes a lot of sense.
Thanks so much for calling in. Is there anything you'd like to say on the way out?
Nope. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for calling in. Have a good one. Moving on to our last call of the night. A quick shout out to Neon Puddles for 10 months and Joe, who was called in just a short time ago for 2 months in a row. But Phreak, we were talking, you were saying it's a bit different having these calls. Do you enjoy this type of show or interacting with the community like this?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's definitely different questions than we go after on the dive, and I guess the pacing's not that different, but it is still sort of it's kind of nice having the redirect from the question asker. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
It kind of keeps you on topic in a way.
Yep. Snail Sage, welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Portland, Oregon.
Nice.
Portland, Oregon. Nice. I have actually, strangely enough, never been to Oregon, though everywhere else on the West Coast. I want to go sometime.
We have great coffee and food.
Yeah, well, we have good coffee and food here in LA, so
because you stole it from us.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is 100% accurate.
We stole a lot of
That's
things.
LA in a nutshell.
Yeah, we stole all the best things and brought it here. So, Sage, what do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
I kind of similar to what the guy was talking about with TSM, but with TL being that I think that TL has peaked. If they actually win this split, they will do worse in Worlds. Versus it actually be, I think it should be better if they lose this split and kind of force them to break through what appears to be like them peaking.
Okay, this is weird because you're saying they're peaking, but then you suggest that if they lose, they will somehow flow through that peak. So
right.
It's hard for me because they've either hit their ceiling or they haven't.
Right. Well, yeah. Sorry.
I mean, like the point being, I think whether or not you agree, philosophically, the idea that like lose to improve idea, where like if you feel like you can just play the same things over and over and win the championship, you never feel like you get pushed as hard. Then if they end up losing in this style and have to learn more and maybe adapt more,
yeah,
lose to improve.
Do we think that happened for them at Rift Rivals at all, or did they just play too much Sonateric?
I think they were shown that they can play the same League of Legends they've been playing for the last few months, and it's good. And I actually believe that's still true. That I don't think Team Liquid have to change much. I think their approach to the game is completely fine. I think the talent pool they have on the player base is completely fine. I don't think they're the favorites, but Team Liquid, with their current players and their current sort of approach to the game, could win the World Championship. Hey. I don't think they will, but I don't think they need. No,
we're gonna cut you off right at that point, by the way. So thank you.
They beat IG
exactly, and now IG turbo trolled in a lot of that series. Don't get me wrong, but then they beat all the European teams of Rift Rivals. They haven't had any championships outside of NA, but they've gone and run the gauntlet of beating all the good teams.
Somehow, Phreak beat out all these other hot takes tonight to give the hottest of all takes.
It's flaming.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the point though. So Phreak, you disagree with this take. You disagree that it would be better for them if they lose because it'll force them to innovate.
Yeah, I don't think Team Liquid need to play a different style than what they've mostly shown. Now, Sonateric got nerfed a little bit, Sona as a carry got nerfed just this patch, and okay, maybe they need more things, but we just saw them pop off playing Caitlyn Lux, and it was the hardest bot lane smashing of all time. So they can play super lane aggro through bot lane, and they can play scaling through bot lane, and I mean they just have one of the best bot lanes in the world and very good players elsewhere.
Yeah,
I think as well as the fact that other than what's funny is Impact might be the most creative player on that team. You know, I can't think of that many picks that Jensen broke out that was like, oh my god, look at that pick. Or Doublelift is notoriously bad for it. I actually talked to Parth about this back when TSM was using him, and they were looking for a sub behind him, and Mr. Raleigh or Turtle or what, you know, that kind of swapping was going on. He was like, oh well, he was not doing that great in Academy, and so they kind of, I think, just moved on from him.
I had forgotten about him. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, but what Partha kind of said was Peter doesn't learn new champs that quickly, and so if ever there was like a broken new champ, it's very likely that this substitute player could probably play that better than him or something like that. And so, like, you know, we've seen it on stage 2 with the Vladimir and all this stuff. Core JJ, I don't think Smithy has shown that he has like super creative, diverse champ pool. Like, you almost always want to see Smithy on the same 3 most meta tank junglers.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Core JJ, I feel like he can just play whatever the fuck he wants because he's so good. But I don't know if that's quite synonymous with creativity. Like, you know, you can have a big champ pool of effective support picks, but it's not like he's the Elise, the Brand, the Vel'Koz support player. And so it's actually, I think, Impact who's the most creative with things like the Singe that he's broken out a couple times and has had some weird top lane picks. So maybe there's a world where, you know, Impact gets a little bit more freedom in this team, but it also doesn't feel like the team that needs Impact to pull out some cheesy, cool stuff to pick up wins. So I would like to find that in his back pocket, but I also don't know if losing in North America is what prompts them to be like, yeah, play Singe again, give that a shot.
Yeah, that seems incredibly. It doesn't feel like TL is the type of team where, when faced with adversity, they change to being something completely different. What, Mark? What happened? Someone
mentioned it was it Core JJ who did the MF support Worlds? No, wasn't that Prey and
Yeah, that was Prey and Gorilla.
Okay, someone lied to me.
Yeah, people do that a lot.
Twitch chat's just making me
Twitch
think.
Twitch chat should never be trusted ever.
Yeah, that was Gorilla. All right, they're wrong. Yeah, I stand by Core JJ. I can't think of many creative things he's done.
Mm-hmm. But you know, keep in mind, like, and this is, don't read too much into this take. SKT was one of the most standard teams ever and won 3 world championships. Now, their talent pool was higher, like their macro was higher. Don't get me wrong, TL is not the same team that SKT is, but like, you don't have to be this is the first year, maybe ever, where the innovative team is the best team in the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only concern, is that it feels like the game right now really favors innovative teams.
I just don't think that's true. I think what happened is Korea, for the longest time, has been a slow, reasonably slow, very vision-centric style of region, and all those teams tried to emulate that. I'm speaking in very broad strokes here, but generally that's been true. And as wards continue to get nerfed, optimal gameplay is no longer a vision style game. And now you have to unlearn like 6 years of this being the best style, where it's like, actually the right way to play the game is with risks. You do have to take risks to play League of Legends optimally. That is now true. And so, well, in the vacuum of SKT and Samsung Galaxy is, well, now who's the best? Is it China playing through Uzi and taking any fight they can get, but playing through bottom lane? Is it Invictus Gaming taking any fight they can get and playing through solo lanes? Is it G2 taking any fight they can get and having crazy picks? Like, they've all taken turns being the best team. They've won back-to-back-to-back tournaments with their own different styles, just as take any fight you can get sort of teams. And I think like TL does have to like be able to keep up with a fast tempo game. I think that is true, that the game is faster, but like it doesn't have to be the G2 style of it or the IG style of it.
Feel as though G2 is widely rewarded for their innovative gameplay?
They are rewarded. Like don't get me wrong, being able to play 140 champions is better than being able to play 60. Fact. But most teams just can't play 140 champions. So like, yeah, it would be nice if my players were all perfect, but they're not. So I should play what my players are good at.
Yeah. But do we have a chance against a team that does play 140?
Yes. I mean, look at Rift Rivals.
Or beating IG, like, it's possible. I mean,
yeah.
What was the most creative thing we did in those drafts? Like Nico top? Maybe?
Wow.
Yeah, I can't remember all of the drafts, but it was like Kaisa, Galio.
Yeah, they played a bunch of Tom Kench, and then IG picked Tom Kench Varus when those players had played those champions twice each.
Yeah,
And
they played
immediately
Nico and
shot
Ken
the
in
bed.
top. Yeah, like I don't think they did anything that creative. So like I think, you know, if this was C9 who was our best team and we were talking about like, and they were playing a super standard game, sure, but C9 does play more creatively and more aggressively. I think you can also play like a controlled style that fits the meta. Like Caitlyn Lux is not like Karma, Tom Kench, or like so like whatever these other weird lanes are, but it is still a very strong aggressive lane that focuses more on pushing objectives down than it does like solo killing lanes, which is G2 will look for the strong lane that lets them kill people. Team Liquid can play their own style, which is like, we're going to sit in front of your turret, and when you try and engage on us, we'll just like kite back and hopefully kill you. So like there is other ways to still play, you know, a quote unquote aggressive game that isn't just about solo killing and finding the perfect
And
lane
tower
matchup.
diving everything.
Yeah.
I guess like just from what I've seen, it seems like seeing TL against 100 Thieves, and yet they choose Sona, and like I don't know. I guess from my perspective, is that how like our best chance at Worlds is getting better?
Sure. Sona won a whole bunch of games of Rift Rivals against some of the best teams in the world, or at least the best teams in Europe, but I think that's close.
I mean, this was Grabs' big complaint, though. Grabs was not happy we were playing Sonateric. He thought that this was, like, lame or I shouldn't say lame, not challenging themselves enough. Like, Team Liquid
they lost to it, so guess what?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand what Grab is coming from in the sense like this tournament doesn't mean anything, and so you should be doing your best to use that time to improve rather than to test your skill on what you already are good at. I guess I can understand that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But I
It's
also
not like they
don't
smashed either on Sonateric against 100 Thieves.
Sure, like League of Legends doesn't have 100% predictability of its results. I would still say, like, hey, if I'm in Game 5 of the World Finals on this patch and Doublelift locks in Sona, I'm not like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, it's a good champion. That's the litmus test.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's completely fine to be like, hey, we're against maybe the best region in the world. We're going to play our stuff and see if we can beat them. Instead of like, well, hey, Doublelift, want to play Yasuo? No, too bad. Like, why is that a good use of your time? Like I said, I don't think TL have to do new stuff. TL can be our bot lane is better. They don't need to do crazy stuff to prove that they're good. They can continue to play their style, make sure they tune up, and then go to Worlds.
Snail Sage, thanks so much
here's the one thing I'll say: why losing to improve would help them. It's not a play style thing; it's a pressure thing. I feel like a lot of TL's players generally don't perform under pressure well, especially Doublelift. I think. You know, internationally, we've seen him struggle a number of times. It feels like when they feel like they have a chance, and as soon as they don't have a chance, they play well, and as soon as they have a chance again, they choke.
So you just want them to be the underdogs rather than the first.
I want them to be the underdogs. Actually, I don't feel like they play well with high pressure on them. So like, if somehow they lost, maybe that actually would help them from Worlds, not from a needing to change their play style, but then not being the number one seed. Because if you go back and look at like, just like, was the pressure on, and then check the result, it's like almost always they would lose if the pressure
MSI kind of
on.
broke that trend, but I know historically it hasn't.
I think the pressure wasn't on for the IG match.
Yeah, no, actually I think it proved it. As soon as the pressure was on, they're like, we can win this thing. They played fucking terrible against G2.
Yeah.
So like, I actually think it proves it more. Yes, they were good enough to beat a pretty bad Flash Wolves and the Vietnamese team, right? Like, and they ended at 4-6. But once they were against IG, no pressure to lose to beat them. They play well.
That's a fair point. Snail Sage, thanks so much for your call. Anything you want to say on the way out?
Just happy birthday to Ichigo Kurizaki today. Money on, guys.
Have a good one.
Cool.
Who is that? Do we know?
What was the name?
Ichigo Kurizaki. I'm gonna look it up. Is it an anime thing?
Kurizaki.
I mean, there's a lot of Ichigo characters. I just don't know any of their last names.
He's a human who has Shinsengami powers and is a
Bleach.
substitute.
Wait, so it is the Bleach character.
Yeah.
It's his birthday today?
The Wikipedia page doesn't list his birthday, so...
Hold on, I'm looking here. July 15th is his birthday. All right, happy birthday to
a Bleach character.
Hooray!
A character whose arc should have ended long ago after he lost his powers and saved the world the first time.
Hey, thanks for the fucking spoilers.
Is that a spoiler in a 400 show anime that the main character wins?
I don't watch anime. What? Whoa! Even more spoilers. Mark,
Wow.
I was never gonna watch Bleach, but now I feel like I can't.
Snape kills Dumbledore, by the way.
Oh my god.
All right. Let's ramp up the show.
Okay.
Mark, do you have anything you want to plug, shout out, whatever?
Twitch Rivals on Wednesday. Me and Kobe will be casting the TFT Twitch Rivals that's happening. I think there's some other casters there too, but I think Zyrene might be
The
doing
only
it.
important ones are you two.
Yeah, just watch Kobe and I's cast, all right? Cool. That's it.
That's it? Nothing else?
I might stream TFT tomorrow. We'll see how I'm feeling.
Nice.
Phreak?
I also might stream TFT tomorrow. We'll see how I'm feeling. Also, make sure to watch Hotline League in a week, right?
Yes, Mondays.
Every Monday at 8 p.m.?
Yes, except for when it's not Monday at 8 p.m., which is frequent. But we
Oh,
at least
okay.
half the shows are Monday at 8 p.m. So
That's good.
Yeah. You
Make
Mark
sure to
and I
watch
look
LCS this
busy
weekend.
lists. Yes, LCS. Are you on the dive this week, or is Mark?
It already came out.
Oh yeah, it already got
You're paying
recorded
attention.
today. Because Mark and Kobe are busy doing Twitch Rivals, which is airing on Wednesday morning,
Oh, okay.
11 a.m. Pacific, I think.
So wait, are you on this week?
Why don't you go check?
Yeah,
The dive came out today, everyone. You should watch it too. I forgot about that. I should have said
that's
that.
true. You should watch
Look,
the dive.
that was what I was trying to do. I was trying to help promote the show, and then I get all this back talk.
You
dive.
didn't know it was out.
I didn't. I've had a very busy day. And by the way, it's Mark. Mark's on this episode. Phreak will be on the next one, I think.
Probably. We tend to trade off back and forth.
You're welcome for trying.
Good job.
Thanks everyone for watching. For me, I've got more interviews coming out this week. I've got a announcement of a project that will be announced either this week or next. But that's going to be interesting. I don't know if I've told Mark about it yet, but it might impact our ability to do Hotline League for at least 1 week. Either way, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Shout out to Alienware for sponsoring the show. Thanks everyone who watched. This has been Hotline League 83.